Okay, welcome back. This is Monday, and we're going to be basically learning how to or pick up from where we left off last time. At this point, you should have the following. You should have a red cube, like you have a red cube here in the center. Notice here, if I click on red cube, it highlights it. So that's what we have right now. Then we have also a trigger. Okay, one that we call trigger. And if you notice the green outline, it's almost like a transparent box. The trigger is what we're going to be going into in order to affect the color of that cube that's in the center of the trigger. Okay, so when your first person controller walks in, that is what will be affected. Okay, we're going to change the color of it. Now, it doesn't always necessarily have to be like a changing of color. It could be an audio that comes up. It could be anything that you want to trigger. It's like a switch. So a trigger is similar to a switch. For example, when you walk into your house and you turn on the lights, that switch triggers the bulb and the electricity to turn on. So that's what we're going to be doing. So at this point, this is what you should have. I'm going to get rid of this over here because you should not have that right now. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. So if you come over here to Playmaker, Playmaker is something you should have docked right over here as a tab. How do you do that? You go to Playmaker, Playmaker Editor, you click on it. It'll open this up, which it opened it up because I don't have it. I already have it inside docked over here, but this is how you dock it. For example, you open this up and all you got to do is drag it and place it right on top. Okay, on top of this bar. All right, so now we're ready to begin. So we have a red cube called red cube. We have a trigger called trigger, and we have a platform called platform. And then of course we have the first person controller over here. So that is how you should begin. So let's go ahead and give it a second here, and I'll show you what else is next. Okay, so if you notice over here on Playmaker, you have different tabs here on the right. You have FSM, state, events, and variables. If you notice over here under FSM, that's where you want to be because you want to create an FSM. What does FSM stand for? It stands for finite state machine. Finite state machine. That's what it stands for. That's not that important right now. What's important is what you have to do. So the first thing we're going to do is, if you don't have this start and state 1, the first thing you need to do is right click and say add state. When you add a state, it'll add if it's the first one you add, it'll say start and then state, okay? We're going to get rid of this one because I already have it here, and you can grab it by just selecting it and placing it right over here. So you right click and you say add state if you don't have it already here. If you have it already here, then you're good. You're good to go. All right? So here we go. So once your state machine is over here, you want to change the name of state 1. We want to click on it and then come over here where it says state 1, and you want to rename that to waiting. Okay, waiting. So WAITING. You change it to waiting and you hit enter. It's important that you hit enter. If not, it will not take. So if you hit enter, you notice over here now it says waiting. At this point now, it's important that you add a trigger event. And the way you do that is you come over here to the Action Browser. Right below here, you click on Action Browser, and you type in trigger under the actions. In this case, I already have it typed in from before, but if you put in trigger, you got to spell it correctly. Trigger, it'll open up the trigger event right here. And all you got to do basically is either double click on it, or click on it and say add action to state. So it's up to you. I usually like to double click on it, and you notice over here it popped up, and now you just go ahead and close this. After you actually add the trigger event, you will see over here that you have different options. First of all, we want to go ahead and add an event. And you click over here under events, and where it says add event, you put on trigger enter. Okay, on trigger enter. And as you can see, it's already here because I had it from before, so that is why it's already there. Okay, but normally it wouldn't be, and I'm going to show you now real quick. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these because that's because I had done it before. So let's do it again. On trigger enter. So we're going to put on trigger enter, and you're going to notice over here that I'm going to say I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and it'll show up here as on trigger enter. So that's what you need to do at this point. Now keep in mind that you have the waiting here highlighted. Okay, it's selected, and then here you're under events, and that is how you do it right now. Okay, so now that you've added the on trigger enter, it should look like this. Okay, it should say on trigger enter, and you should have a little check mark next to it. All right, now we're going to go back to state. We're going to go back to state on the tab over here. And you're going to come over here on this state, and you're going to say where it says over here, send event. You're going to click on this drop down and say on trigger enter. So you're going to notice that it says on trigger enter right now. And don't worry about this red error. That'll go away afterwards. Okay? Okay, there's a little error that I made here. Remember I told you here to put send event? I want you to go ahead and delete that. Okay? Don't on the send event that you put on trigger enter, don't put it there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to waiting, right click, you're going to add transition, and here you put on trigger enter. Notice over here now you have this little exclamation mark. Don't worry about that, but this is what you should have now. So if you did before what I told you to do, which was my mistake, I told you here to type in on trigger enter, go ahead and just get rid of it. Okay, get rid of it. And what you should have done was right click on waiting, go to add transition, on trigger enter. When you hit on trigger enter, this will show up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to now add a new state. Make sure you are under the tab called state. Okay, you right click and say add state. That'll open up a new state for you. Now what we want to do is we want to change the color, obviously, of the cube once the trigger is entered. So we're going to go to Action Browser, and we're going to type in color, okay, or set color. I believe it's set color. Okay, let me see. That may not have been it. It's not set color. I think it's just color. Okay, let me see here. Okay, so it's set material color. That's why it's important that you know these names, because if not, you will not be able to find them. Okay, by me just putting color, it doesn't really work. So you've got to put set material color, and you notice that it pops up right here. So you just double click on it, and then go ahead and close this, and you're ready for the next step. Okay, so now the next step is make sure to highlight this particular state over here. This state is the one that has to be highlighted. If you highlight this state over here, you're in the wrong place. Make sure you highlight this state. Once you highlight that state, you're going to say, you're not going to use owner. What you're going to do is you're going to specify the game object, because you want to specify the actual cube. All right, so that's what you do right now. You make sure you click on specify game object, and that red cube, you go ahead and come over here. All right, now this is a little tricky because notice now that everything has changed. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to go back over here to my trigger. Okay, and you want to make sure that your trigger, your state is selected right over here. Now you come over here and go to the red cube. Now you don't click on it and then click on it again to drag it. You just grab it, click on it once and drag it. Keep the left mouse button down and go to game object right over here. Notice it now says red cube. Okay, that is what you got to do. If you don't do this perfectly right, you're going to have some errors. Okay, so make sure that this one, you're selected with this state, and that it says red cube over here. That's why it's important for you to name everything the way that I have named it. Now what we want to do is we want to change the color. If you notice over here, okay, it is black. We want to change that to, let's say, green. So all you got to do is click on it, choose your green color right over here, and once you've done it, all you got to do is click on the X over here. It changes to green. Now what you're going to do is you're going to come over here to where it says on trigger enter. You're going to come to the edge here, left click with your mouse and drag a arrow right to where it says state 1. Okay, with your left mouse button clicked, you drag an arrow and you connect it. That is what you do. One thing you want to do is change this to, from state 1 to change color, because it's a little bit more appropriate. Change color. You want it to be correct. Now you hit enter, so it'll take. And notice over here, it changed to change color. So now when you enter and the trigger is affected, you know, when the trigger is triggered, it'll change colors. But now when we want it, when we get out, we want it to also change. So we're going to have to add another trigger event over here on this state. So you come to this state, go to your action browser, make sure you're under states, okay? You got to be under states, and you've got to have this one highlighted, the one that says change color. Now you go ahead, come over here, and you're going to go to the action browser again, and you're going to type in trigger. In this case, it's already here. So remember, you can either double click on it, or you could just click on it and say add action to state, and that'll add it right there, as you can see right here. Okay, so make sure please that you have this selected, this state, the change color state. Then you also are under the state tab, and you've added a new trigger event. Now since this trigger event is so that when you come out, when you exit, the trigger cannot be on trigger enter. Okay, that has to be on trigger exit. So we're going to click on here and say on trigger exit. We go to the drop down, on trigger exit. Once you do that, now you come over here to the change color state. You're going to right click on it, add a transition called finished. You're going to add a transition there called finished. Once you do that, now you will drag an arrow or a link from finished to waiting. Okay, because it's waiting for you to come out of that trigger so that it could start then the whole process again. Now you basically come over here where it says send event, and you'll see that it says finished, because you want to make sure to solidify that event. Okay, so there we go, finished. So it should look something like this. It should look like this. Okay, so now an important thing is you go back now to this state. Make sure you select it and highlight it. Notice over here it says send event right over here, but it doesn't say anything. Okay, it has to say on trigger enter, because right now it's just staying there and just waiting, but it has to be sent over on this side. So we're going to go to send event, and we're going to select on trigger enter. There you go. So you've got to do that. Make sure it's selected over here. This state is selected. Make sure you have this state on the tab, and then go to send event, drop this down, and on trigger enter. Okay, so at this point it should work. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hit play. We're going to go ahead and hit play over here, and once we hit play, let me make sure. Okay, so at this point, we're going to try it out. Hit play, like I said before. Make sure to hit play. Once you hit play, we're going to go ahead and wait till it renders. you're going to go to your first person controller. This is you looking through the first person controller. We're going to go and approach by hitting the right mouse button down and then hit W. You will be able to go forward. And as you approach it, it turns green. If I come back, notice it still stays green. That's because you have to do a loop. And we're going to, so that we could put it back in the original state. But right now, it does work. Okay, if I hit play, unplay again, and then hit play one more time, if I click on here, once it goes into my first person controller, then I can go forward and it'll turn green. Then I come back and I'm expecting for it to turn red again, but it's not because I'm missing that loop. So we're going to do that now. Since this state over here changed the color, it changed the color to green, we want to go ahead and copy another one of these. I mean, you could still make it manually, but it's much easier if you just select it and then come over here, and we're going to say set this material. We're going to copy it. We're going to right click on it and say, I don't want to have this in my way here, I'm sorry. Give me a second. Okay, sorry about that. I wanted to take out the camera, my camera that I have here on me, out of the way so you could see it. So you go ahead and select this state right over here. Go to set color, material color. All you're doing now is right click on it and say copy selected actions. Now that's actually has copied it. And now what I want to do is I want to come over here and I want to go to my weighting on trigger enter and right click and say paste actions. So now that has set that there. Now the color is still green, so I don't want it to be still green because it already turns green once my trigger goes into, once I go into my trigger. So I want this one to be red, and I want it to be the same color red. So how do you do that? You get this little eyedropper right over here, you click on it, and notice over here, you go and you click on the eyedropper. If I can get it going here. Okay, click on it. And there we click on the red cube. That way we are guaranteed that it's the same exact color. And now what you need to do is, okay, so we're done. Now we're going to play it and we're going to see if it works. So it's important that you hit play. Now it'll take a second. You'll go into first person controller. And now you hit the W and the right mouse button to go forward. Okay, here we go. And it'll turn green. If I hit the S to back up while still holding the right mouse button, I walk back, it turns red. So you see, you've noticed that is basically a trigger. And that's what you have done. Now this trigger, like I said before, could be for anything. It could be a light that you want to turn on once you enter a room. It could be for a sound that comes out if you're doing a scary game. And it could be like a person that's coming out of a room or something. And you're triggering that person to come out. So it could be a variety of different things. In this case, it was just a simple color going from red to green and then green to red. But you can have multiple of these triggers all around your game. And it could really create an interesting environment if you have these. Now, that's what you need to do. I'm going to go now just going to show you the different states so you see what you need to have in the different states. If I click on this state over here, okay, you're going to notice that you have a trigger event and these are the settings. If I keep it clicked, if I have it, keep it selected, you're going to notice over here I have the set material color. The set material color is red. All right, and then you have all these over here named this way, okay? It's got to be like this, and you have to be under state. Now, you have to have two states over here. If I go ahead now and select this one, okay, this state, now you see I have set material color to green, because that's going to set it to green once I go inside the trigger, and then here you have the trigger event, and you have finished, and you have on trigger exit. So everything has to be the correct way. If you're adding an action, it's got to be on the action browser. It's important for you to know that. Okay. So that's pretty much it. I think this is going to take you a little longer than the other ones have, but I think you'll do really well. And if you have any questions, just raise your hand and let me know. All right. Thank you, and see you on the next tutorial.